Things you need to consider when you're starting over. Hi guys, how are y'all? My name is Muzzle. If you haven't watched any of my videos, oh my word, I feel like I spoke really fast. My name is Muzzle. Claudia's sitting behind the camera. She just pulled her face really weird because I did a ha ha ha. Now what is the TikTok? Ho 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 ho. Ho 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 ho. Laugh like a lady. Ho 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 ho.
Not in this life.
No, I laugh with a pep store laugh, and I'm great with that. The man who marries me will love my laugh, okay? He doesn't have a choice. But anyway, today I want to talk about something that came up when I was reading a book. So I have a new friend. His name is Martin Couscous. This man was in government for quite some time. He sent me his book. Do you see the notas? I've been highlighting this book like a crazy woman. The book is called Credibility Matters. And y'all, it's traveling with me in my Bible. Okay, because wow. It's actually one of my top, and I've read a lot of books. It's one of the top reads I've ever had because of the kind of wisdom that is so concise in this book and the way that it's planned out. Like, I got on a call with him for an hour just trying to understand how he thinks because the book is wild. Get the book, it will change your life. Anyway, today's episode, because I read something in his book, and after our conversation, I realized that there's some things that with this YouTube channel I need to be very particular about. And because I've had unique experiences, I know that I'm not the only person who've experienced some of the stuff that I have, but I do have unique experiences, and I'm very good at absorbing information and absorbing experiences and then being able to speak to other people about it. I think I'm good at it. I'm just going to go with that. Let's not play into the self-worth game here. But what I want to talk about today is things you need to consider when you're starting over. So this video is for two specific people. Number one, for people who have to start over, who didn't have a choice, right? For many people, you end up in a situation that you did not curate. You end up homeless, devastated, without a job, struggling, living on welfare, on SASA, and your life just ended up in a place that you did not plan, right? And then there are people who feel stuck in their jobs or stuck in their lifestyle or feel like they've become people that they aren't actually. The reason I say I've had unique experiences is because I've had both of these experiences, right? So back in, how old is my child now? My child is 9. I left my job in 2016. So in 2016, we had already been running a business. We've been doing that business from around 2010. And around 2015, I was starting to get very frustrated with the kind of job that I had. So I worked in admin, guys. I worked in admin for 10 years in the bank. I didn't like my job. That's an understatement. And I didn't like my job because I'm a creative. I sat behind the desk doing admin tasks all day, which was the most boring thing on the planet to me. But I also felt like what I had inside me was not being used. To add insult to injury, I'd had a baby in 2014. So I was feeling very unstuck with my life. I was extremely overweight. I was extremely exhausted. I was not happy. We were running the business on the side, so I was barely sleeping. And I was wearing brown for a very long time. I just wore brown and I barely wore makeup, and I looked like I woke up, like I just woke up all day. I was miserable. Part of it was because obviously my marriage and my life, but a lot of it was that I was feeling like I couldn't figure out myself. I knew there was something else I needed to do. I still haven't fully figured that out yet. So don't think leaving my job solved that problem. But I knew that I was in a place that felt like it was suffocating me. So 2016, after a hectic prayer meeting one night, and after feeling a lot of pressure and people walking me back on it, I finally decided to resign my job. So I resigned my job, and then went full force into learning everything I possibly could about entrepreneurship and business. Now, one of the things I want to tell people is it's not a good idea to leave your job and then think you're going to start something or be good at something, because you generally are not. It's a good idea to make sure if you're going to have like a side hustle to start doing that while you're working. We did that for a very long time. So we were kind of okay-ish for the first 3 years. It was rough. There were times when we didn't have any money for a long time. But what I did consciously was sign up for every single workshop and conference that I didn't pay for any of them. I found free ones. So I was in Sandton literally 2 days a week, going to a business conference and entrepreneurship stuff, linking up with entrepreneurs. I was doing every possible thing because I had a very small window to learn everything I possibly could about entrepreneurship, right? I understood admin well, so that part was fine, the registration, all that. But I threw myself at it. And even though it took 3 years for the business to really start doing well, all of that information that I learned really added value to what the business had become, right? So when you're feeling frustrated and stressed about your job and you're not enjoying it, please make sure you have something you are passionate about that you can keep doing. You don't want to have something that you feel like, oh no, I'm really good at this, and then 3 months down the line, you're not doing it. You need to do something that adds longevity. Us shooting this, me being able to do the lighting and the mic and doing photography and all of that, started in 2010, right? So the business that I left my job for was doing this, doing media training, traveling around the country, training ministers, training Miss South Africas. That was the kind of thing. And then I started doing like MC gigs, and then the owning this live talk show. It was all in the same realm of activities. I can't imagine if I had left and went to real estate. No, that wouldn't have lasted a month. I think I would have been bored, because I also came out of property finance at Nedbank, which was just like not great. But if you're going to start over like that, make sure you start with a plan. My plan wasn't concise. I'm not a very good planner, something I'm changing in the next season. But I had somewhat of an idea what I was going to do, and I connected with very, very amazing people. There are some networking events that happen once a month that are free, and you will meet CEOs who make billions at those events, because those people are very down to earth. They just show up at events just to meet people. So make sure that you're able to make yourself that available even before you leave your job. Then fast forward to 2021. Business is thriving, traveling all over the country, doing really well. Money means squat. I mean, at some point, I was just buying stuff because I could. Like 2020, we were literally just buying stuff because we could. Life was comfortable. I wasn't rich, but life was comfortable enough where I didn't have to stress. I have 4 children. If I was able to functionally feed my 4 children with takeaways every other day, you know we're doing okay. And then obviously everything flips. Experiencing starting over when you're not expecting it is 100 times harder. And the reason why is because you are obviously not prepared for it. You don't know what's coming next. You don't know how to prepare yourself, and you don't know what the landscape looks like. So I wasn't actively looking at the landscape. I wasn't actively looking for new opportunities, because all of the work that we were getting in the business was word of mouth. That was coming to us really comfortably. This is why the business did so well. But now I come out of the system like completely shocked. I don't know how to do sales. I don't even know how to sell myself, because I didn't have to learn how to do it, because we got our clients through word of mouth. And I realized I'm lacking 1,000 other skills. Don't have time to figure those skills out, because now I am running from pillar to post just to keep us fed. That is the hardest adjustment that you can possibly make. But there are tools and tips that I think I want to let people come into awareness of, that you won't realize when your life shifts like that. In starting over seasons that are not induced by you and that you are forced into, the first and most important thing you have to do, and I only learned this year, is find a place of safety. If it's family, if it's friends, if it's someone willing to take you in, somewhere where you can feel safe. And I'm not even necessarily talking about physically. I'm talking about safe, where you can feel your feelings, where they won't bother you as much about having to do this and having to do that, but where you can actually just feel like you can decompress. There's nothing worse than coming into from that season into an extremely high impact stress situation, because you cannot focus on your mental and emotional health, and your healing is stalled. Your growth is stalled because you cannot actively pay any attention to those things, right? So the first thing you do is get a place of safety, a place where you can actually just slowly start to take apart what happened, why it happened, and what you need to do next, right? Once you're able to do that, you'll find that depending on what the situation is, that there are things that are going to bubble up, right? Emotions and feelings and things from whatever happened are going to bubble up. Please sit with those things. Don't push them aside because you need to be some particular way. Don't say, no, I can't deal with this. Now, you have to deal with it then. If you don't deal with it then, it's going to show up later. And it usually shows up at the most vital time, when things are really starting to get better, right? So first thing, find a place of safety. Secondly, things are going to bubble up. You deal with them then and there, right? Then the third thing you do is, as you're going through this process, be actively and intentionally involved in getting better, getting ahead, or learning, growing, educating yourself in the places you know now that you lack. But then also don't get too excited about a possible future, because what we tend to do is we tend to future fake ourselves into believing that, God has done miracles for everybody, so my miracle is coming. I got caught in that trap for like 2 or 3 months. I was literally watching sermons of pastors who were hyping people up every Sunday, and then I was hyping myself up. And then when things wouldn't go right, or I wouldn't get any work, I would literally sink into the floor. Don't do that to yourself. You need to understand that anything that is going to happen for you, the environment needs to be conducive. And the only way the environment can be conducive is if you are actively working on the things that you need to work on to move ahead slowly. So like for applying for jobs, making sure you're dealing with your mental and emotional health. If your safe place allows you the opportunity for counseling or therapy or whatever, please do those things. Don't wait too long to do those things, because they can trap you for a very long time, right? So then the thing was, don't get too excited about the possibility of things getting better, because this is the other thing. Things can take 5-10 years to get better. Someone actually told me the other day that it took 8 years plus for things to even start to look better for them. And I'm going to tell you, my heart broke, because I was just like, Lord, please, I can't. But I need to be realistic, right? We need to be realistic. We need to be realistic that we can only let God work on His time and not force His hand to work in the way that we need, right? Then I think one of the lessons I'm learning now is, don't get too excited when things start to get better. Don't get too excited about now all of a sudden wanting to make your lifestyle what it was. I'm going to give you an example. I had a really good lifestyle before. I'm actually very frugal. I'm not a very big spender. I never have been. So when things started to get a little bit better, the first thing I went to is, okay, so should I apply for a new cell phone? Because if you know anything about me, it's my phone at you. I've got the crappiest, oldest phone on the planet, and it gives me grief. It does the bare minimum. So my immediate thought went to, maybe I should take out an account for a phone. And I thought about it, but because I'm frugal and I generally don't like taking out accounts, I can count on one hand how many accounts I've had in my life. I was really, really skeptical. And I didn't do it. And I didn't do it because financially I wouldn't have been able to afford it. Like, number one, I got too much debt. The bank would have said no anyway. But even if the bank had said yes, I still wouldn't have been able to afford it, because realistically, I don't get paid tons of money. I get paid just enough to literally survive. So don't get too excited about getting back to what your life was, because the point of this entire transition is not to go back to what it was. It's to get better, but it's supposed to be better than what it was, because you are better, because you are different, because you are changed, because you are grown. If you fall back into old habits, you're just going back to a lifestyle that you were literally kicked out of. That I think is the biggest mistake. This is why I don't have an apartment. I don't even know if they give me one. I don't have an apartment because apartment is too expensive. Who can afford 3 months deposit? Cape Town is wild, y'all. But that's why I don't have an apartment. We literally now live in a little room that is our entire home. We don't have any other options, and we try to keep it as bare minimum as possible. But also because of the way that things are in my personal life, I'm not a flaunter, and it feels like everyone else is waiting for me to flaunt so they can say, yeah, you do have money. When how much did we hustle the last 2 weeks? I had to hustle a job for us just to eat for the last week. So there's that. So just be really cautious with how you move forward. Some of these changes are inevitable. Some of these things are forced on us, and we don't have really the hindsight beforehand. So take it from someone who knows. Don't get too excited. Your best investments, right, are making sure you become healthy again. Because for the most part, when things like this happen, you generally are eating really bad or not eating at all for long periods of time because life has forced you to kind of starve yourself. Make sure your health is getting back on track. Make sure your mental state is getting back on track. Make sure your focus is back on track so that when things start to open, you are functioning at your peak. You don't want to be functioning at the worst side of you when things start to open again. That would be the worst representation of you, number one. But also, it would reflect badly on the entire experience you just went through, right? Make sure you're at your most emotionally sound place, at your most educationally sound place, right? If you have a business, make sure you're taking money to invest back into your business so that when you have extra money to do other things, you can consider lifestyle changes. Or in my case, I can consider getting a place so that I can get my kids back. Don't get too excited about future prospects. People will promise you things and then pull the plug on you regularly. It is a mistake to put that much trust in people initially because everybody here in this world is looking out for themselves, right? But one thing I think most people don't consider, and this is something I'm going to get into only now properly, is find something to give back to. I find that there's so much more meaning when you are not the only person you are feeding, when you're not the only person that you're supporting, when you're not the only person you are looking out for. Find a way to give your time and your energy to other people or foundation or something, right? Find something meaningful that will anchor you. Because at the end of the day, who you are is going to matter. How much money you end up making at the end of the day is not going to mean anything. When people write your eulogy, they're not going to say, and they had R1 million, and then they bought themselves a BMW, and then they bought themselves a mansion. They're not going to care about all that. What's going to matter is how much impact you had in other people's lives, especially in the middle of your struggle. So make sure that you are staying anchored in that way because it's going to keep you really close to reality. You need to remain in reality because most of the time we get ripped out of our old lifestyles like this because we were so detached from reality. I barely did any give back work back in the day. Wow, back in the day, that sounded like 40 years ago. But we can basically say it was. 40 years of the wilderness. That's funny. But the only things that I was doing was my talk show, and I wasn't really doing things that were meaningful for people who actually needed it, right? But I'm finding now that I'm slowly getting a little bit more involved in that it actually really means something to me, and I'm actually having a conversation now about how I'm going to become more involved because some of the things I'm going to do next is going to speak directly to that. So consider that you are not the only person in the universe, and that, like someone said to me, and another person said the same thing to me last week, your journey is not just for you. Start implementing those that give back strategy during your situation. So yeah, those are just some of my tips for starting over. I hope it's helpful. Let me know what you think. And let's take on the next part of the journey together.